I learned very early in my life that I don't need to own 100% of something. I would much rather own 1% of $1 trillion company than 100% of $100,000 company, right? Like the money is really what matters, not the percentage. The percentage is a brag. The return is really what you should be talking about. So if I can just own 5% of a company that's doing, $1 billion, that's a great deal, right? So it doesn't really matter what the percentage is. It just matters what the return is going to be on that money. That's really what I'm looking at. And I think that there's a lot of people out there in this world that don't get the support that they need to really like chase their dreams. So if I could give that to somebody and make that something that they can obtain while also benefiting myself and the rest of the people that are involved in me and maybe being able to share that down the line with more companies to invest in, more people to invest in, that would be ideal for me. So
welcome millionaires and future millionaires. You're listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast, the show where you'll hear the stories and interviews of everyday millionaires. We'll unveil their decisions, their strategies, and their portfolio allocation. Now to your host, Jace Mattinson.
Welcome back to another episode of the Millionaires Unveiled podcast. This is episode number 371.
This is the podcast where everyday millionaires come dish out the deets about their investments, wealth-building secrets, and of course, their blunders. We are your hosts, Jason Stacy, and every Monday we dive into the completely unscripted, unapologetically real world of millionaires who could be your next door neighbor, or not, because they are nomadically globetrotting. Our guests will reveal how they turn their piggy banks into treasure chests, share investment strategies that might just make you look at your 401k with renewed hope, and tell personal stories that may tug the heartstrings. So grab a seat, settle in, and prepare to find out how regular folks like you and me turned their dreams into dollar signs. And don't worry, while we're here to get the goods, we've only edited to keep things family friendly.
Yeah, talk a litlittle bit about the 401k. It's been a little bit of a crazy market the last few weeks. We saw a big dip and then kind of a little bit of a resurgence. And going to be an interesting fall, that's for sure. And I can't wait to talk about today's guest because it is a very cool, unique, out there story. But before we get into that, if you'd like to be on the show, send us an email, millionairesunveiled@gmail.com. We're always looking for new great guests, new millionaire interviewees. We've got some new professions coming in the pipeline, but there's always several out there that I am particularly looking for. It's been a while too since we've had some different professionals, whether it be a lawyer or a doctor on. But today we have one on, he's a CPA. Also, though, we are coming up on episode 400. And to keep a tradition as much as possible, if we can, it'd be fun to talk to somebody worth 400 million or more. Not opposed to that either, but to mark that kind of episode in our history, it'd be almost, by the time we release that, we'll be like eight and a half years in on the show. So anyway, today's guest, Byron, he's got a net worth of $15 million. He's a CPA and runs his own firm, mainly doing some tax strategy work and some outsourced CFO work, which we get into. Very interesting since that's a lot of what my background essentially was, or how I started my career. So we dive pretty deep into that, and he tells some stories that will tug on the heartstrings for sure about kind of some of his past and where he's gotten to today. From an investment standpoint, he primarily invests in private companies, not only his own, but also several other companies, and we talk about that and kind of his mindset around making those private company investments and how he kind of gets the deal flow and whatnot. So going to be a great episode with him. And without any other delay, let's get right into it with Byron.
Byron, do you want to just give us a lot of your background and what you're up to now?
Oh, yeah, man. I appreciate that. So I am a fractional CFO, CPA, own a pretty decent size CPA firm focusing on fractional CFO services and tax strategy. That's pretty much all I do is numbers. I'm a numbers guy, but they're very important. And I think that the world needs more numbers. And if you're running a business and you don't know the numbers, I would argue you're probably not running a business. But that is, it's kind of me in a nutshell. Anything else you want to know, man, I'm happy to answer.
And how long have you been doing the fractional CFO work?
So I shut down one of our businesses and went full time around 2018. So it's only been about 6 years that we've been full time fractional CFO, tax strategy. I've been involved in being. I've been a CPA for longer than that. Hell, I don't know, long time, 2010ish, 2011. So it's been a long time that I've been a CPA working with taxes and tax strategy. I realized very quickly that doing taxes is really boring, but the strategy, kind of the puzzle of figuring out how to really, really limit your taxes, but show a high profitability. That was really interesting to me. And so I've stuck with that and made that a business, do it for other people. Now that I've kind of perfected doing it myself, kind of figured out how to make my whole entire life a write-off. And now I'm trying to teach everybody else how to make that happen in their own lives. Right.
That's cool. And it's crazy. I've never actually met somebody who I used to. I'm a CPA and went Big Four and did fractional CFO type work too. But it's been a minute, so it's kind of cool to connect with somebody who's doing it still. But I want to get into all the details and kind of the trajectory of what you've done. But before we do, what's your net worth today?
Net worth today, rough ballpark, we're probably sitting in the 15 mil range.
Awesome. And what is kind of the breakup of that? I mean, asset allocation. What are you looking at that kind of makes up that chunk?
Well, so I'm going to contradict myself here. I'm not a big fan of holding cash almost all the time. I will say where we're at right now in today's world, 2024 pre-election time, I am a big fan of cash. So we're pretty heavy cash and liquid assets right now, just because I know there's going to be some huge opportunities upcoming. Not a big real estate guy, but I like to have a nice home. So we got a lot of money sunk into that. I'm really a business investor. I love getting into businesses, pumping some capital in, kind of turning up the heat, creating better numbers for that business, more profitability, more growth. And so most of our money really comes from the valuation of the equity pieces that we have in businesses. I used to be very greedy and I wanted to own 100% of everything, right? But then I learned very quickly that if I own a small piece of a company, maybe 50% down to say 5%. We have 5% in some companies. That can be worth a lot more by itself because it allows me to partner with people that have the same mentality, but have superpowers in areas other than finance and accounting, which is really where I exist. Maybe they're an operational superhero or a marketing superhero or sales superhero. So I can get together with them and really create a lot more value within that with the company. So the majority of our holdings or our net worth is really in the companies that we own or the equity pieces that we own of those companies.
And when you say most, I mean, is that 80-90% is effectively in privately held businesses?
Yeah, probably 80%, I would say. We're like I said, a little heavy cash. We're about 1.7, 1.8 cash. Maybe $1.2 million in property. Personal property right now. Of course, got toys and other stuff. So I would say most of it is in the businesses. But even those businesses are very cash heavy right now, just because I know the opportunity is up and coming. So we do hold a lot of cash in those businesses that I have the financial controls of.
Do you have any investments in publicly traded companies at all, or in stock market and retirement accounts?
Yeah, we have retirement accounts. So we're pretty heavily invested in our retirement accounts as much as we can fund those. I'm a heavy investor in crypto. Not because I think it's, I'm not a day trader or anything like that, but I do believe in that being the next monetary system. So over the years, I have pretty heavily invested in a number of different cryptos. I don't go crazy with the shit coins, the meme coins, things of that nature. But I tend to stick with the major ones. My craziest holding is XRP. I believe in that asset so much that I've actually bought into the company as well. So that is probably my one biggest, I would say, public would be my holding in Ripple. But again, a lot of crypto stuff. If I can't control the company, I don't know that I want to put that much money behind it. So I understand why people invest in Tesla and all the other big stocks. But even if I put every dollar I own into it, I'm not really going to have a huge impact on these multiple billion-dollar, trillion-dollar companies. So I would rather put my money where my mouth is, put it in a company that I control, or at least have control, over and with the rest of the partners to really have a much bigger impact. I've always felt like I can get a much better return when I control the money than handing over that money to somebody else and allowing them to have the control of that.
And this is something that I guess I hear frequently from those that don't effectively invest in the markets or in real estate. I mean, we have a lot of that come on that invest heavily in real estate for the control piece where they feel like they can control that asset. So I'm curious though, from your standpoint, do you take that money that you effectively put in for the tax advantage into those tax advantage accounts and self-direct that into these businesses?
Yeah, I do. So I do a mix. So I invest in crypto, some of the safer cryptos. So part of my retirement accounts are crypto based, and some of those are investments into businesses. The beauty of the self-directed retirement accounts is they're self-directed, right? Like we can kind of invest in what we want to invest in. We take that risk, which I understand. You got to have that confidence to say, okay, I know better than the market, or I know better than the people that are managing this. So I'm going to direct it. I'm going to decide where this money goes. But I've taken kind of that 50-50 strategy for a long time now. And it's done well for me. I have a pretty decent crypto retirement account, even with the dips and everything that's happened in it. I feel very comfortable in what I've created there. And then in those companies that I've invested in, I've seen a tremendous return on those dollars that are invested. Now, those I tend to stay a little bit out of. I've directed it. I've kind of set the framework and I've stepped out and kind of taken, kind of a back seat, maybe a board seat or something like that. So I try not to invest in the ones that I'm directly responsible for because that's kind of doubles it up. But I would invest in those as well too, because again, maybe it's just being conceited or full of myself, but I have a lot of confidence in my own decisions, and I tend to do well by believing in myself.
So the money that you've put in these private businesses, when did you start kind of making that a big portion of your strategy from an investment standpoint?
2008 was the first time I invested in a retirement account. I'd had a really good real estate friend who, by this point, he had done extremely well for himself. He had gone to college, but real estate was really more of his passion. And so he was investing, uses a retirement account to invest. I don't want to throw him under the bus, but he had taken out a lot of student loans and used that to buy some real estate property that did really well for him. I know technically that's not what you're supposed to do, but he did really well with it. And so, I learned that process from it. But again, I've just never really been a real estate guy. I see real estate more as a tool to reduce my taxable income through like cost segregations and write-offs and other things. But nothing against the real estate. It just doesn't really bring me joy. It's not something I get excited about, doing. He got really excited about real estate, kind of got me a little bit more involved in it. But by researching, I said, well, hey, I can take this money that's in this retirement account that you're using to buy properties, and I can use that to invest in businesses, which I feel like has a better return than the real estate properties. And again, I'm not trying to argue with people that are big real estate people. I get it. They do really well with it. They can make great money at it. It's just not where my passion lies. My passion is definitely in businesses and creating, revenue through those businesses, creating value that, we can sell, creating that multiple effect. So nothing against real estate, just doesn't really get my engine going.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I want to take a deep dive, if you don't mind, into investing in private businesses, because I think it's really unique, and obviously it's been kind of a large portion of your net worth and what you've done from a career standpoint too. How do you approach, finding these? I mean, are they coming through some of your clients? I know you said you kind of don't want to double up on them, but do they come through and, hey, maybe they've grown enough, and then maybe you'll write an equity check to get them some growth, or do you raise funds, or is this all Byron's personal funds going into businesses that you go find, and you're taking, I think you said between anywhere 5% to a 50% stake in some of them. Is that correct?
Yeah. So most of the time it's just people. So I'll find a company that's doing well that I believe in the person that's running it, and then they want to do something else. They want to do a side business, or maybe they want to do an expansion, whatever that looks like. I know that really solid people that are really good entrepreneurs are going to find a way to make it work. And so when I find people that I feel like I should, be investing in, and they want to do something, that's a great opportunity to say, hey, I want to invest in you. And if this is how I can invest in you, then I'm ready to do that. I do have a lot of people that agree with my mindset, and, I can kind of call on and say, hey, this is something I'm doing. This is kind of what I'm throwing at it. If you're interested in making that happen, or if you're interested in going, alongside me in that process, this is the time frame, this is the investment, is that something you want to do? And so I have had some people that, are friends of mine that have gone in on some of these deals and done well. I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily like raising funds, but, I know that if somebody needs, say, $1 million to get something off the ground, and I have a $100,000, tolerance of that one. I say, hey, I can throw $100K at this, and it's not going to break the bank or hurt me if it doesn't do well. But I know what the potential upside is. Well, I don't want to put $1 million at it. But if I have confidence in it enough to throw $100K at it, I got no problem calling 9 friends and saying, hey, I think this is a good deal. I think this is worth getting into. I think it can do this, and then kind of getting that buyer group together and making that happen. So, I've done that a number of times. I've found people that are worth investing in, that maybe haven't necessarily proven themselves to the point where the bank or your traditional lending institutions are ready to go all in with them. Or maybe they don't have the collateral to make that happen, but we can structure it in a way that it makes sense for them. The return comes out, because I learned very early in my life that I don't need to own 100% of something. I would much rather own 1% of $1 trillion company than 100% of $100,000 company, right? Like, the money is really what matters, not the percentage. The percentage is a brag. The return is really what you should be talking about. So if I can just own 5% of a company that's doing, $1 billion, that's a great deal, right? So it doesn't really matter what the percentage is. It just matters what the return is going to be on that money. That's really what I'm looking.
And from a return standpoint, are you looking more at like what that total ROI looks like after a post sale, or is it the cash flow that may kick off, year after year, month after month, or how do you kind of think about that?
Yeah, so I used to be a lot more concerned with the cash flow because I needed the cash flow to fund whatever the next idea was. As I get a little bit more established in my life, and again, I'm 46 years old, so I'm not young, but I don't consider myself old, but I'm past the point of needing, the next dollar to make the next dollar. So, I can afford.
Call that middle age, right?
Yeah, it's middle age, right?
I'm starting to enter those years. I just got past like that mid-30 mark, It's like so middle age now. I'm like, what? Between 35 and 55, middle age.
It's just, somebody made a mistake. It's got to be something way past this. But I used to need the cash flow, right? And so I would look at it from a cash flow standpoint. I needed cash to come back so that I could reinvest it in something else or do something else with it. But, now I'm a little bit more secure in where I'm at. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm the richest person that I know by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, tons of people that I know that I'm, good friends with would call me poor, but, it's a mindset, right? It's just kind of where you're at that moment, but I don't really need the cash flow immediately. So I look at really what the potential play out is at the end. My most recent acquisition, I went in with a guy, a lot of confidence in him, know that he's going to do really, really well with his business. His business is already doing well. He just needed a couple of key components to really take it to the next level. Some of that was me investing in that company, investing some time, investing some money into it. But he knows and he understands the, what it really means to go to the next level and not get so involved with a percentage. So I have taken on a decent percentage of that company, but the plan and what we're going to do with the money that was invested is going to make it worth a lot more than it could ever be without that. And so we're looking at what's the multiple at the end of this? What's the exit, right? So the exit is really where I'm at in my life now. Like, what are we going to exit this thing for? Because again, 46 years old, I only want to, when I turn 60, I only want to angel invest. I don't want to have to be involved. I don't want to have to be directing things. I don't want to have to be managing the accounting side, the finance side. I would really love to be in a place where it's just straight investing in people, investing in ideas, investing in things that I believe in and that I see a future in. And to make that happen, I've got to change that mindset from cash flow to what's the exit value? What's this thing going to eventually be worth in the immediate future?
So are you industry agnostic then too from these investments?
Yeah. I don't really have any issue with any of the any industry. One thing I have found is being on the accounting and the financial side, and this, numbers are numbers, right? And so it doesn't really matter what you're selling, if it's a service or a product or whatever. The numbers are the numbers. Your KPIs are going to be KPIs. If you can manage those and you can let whoever is running the marketing, the sales, the operations, all that, if those are killers in their space and they know what's going on within the industry and they can do what needs to be done with that industry, numbers are the numbers. So yeah, I would definitely say I'm industry agnostic. I really don't care what it is. I would prefer it be, legal, ethical, and moral, but 20 years ago, probably not as strict on that either, right? So,
Gosh. How many have you kind of seen full cycle at this point where you made that initial check and have sold?
Oh man, more have failed than have been successful. I will say that I would be willing to predict that at the end of this whole thing, when it's all said and done, that won't change. I think I'll have a lot more failures than I'll have successes. I think that that's just part of the cycle. But through that whole time, I've seen two successfully close out, exit, what I would call successful. I've seen three that were kind of a wash. Definitely not the return that I wanted, but I got my money back plus a little something. I wouldn't call it a waste of time. And I've seen way too many fail. Some miserably, some just, hey, this just isn't worth it. It's just, the return's not there. The money invested isn't there. This isn't really going anywhere. It's time just to shut them down. And I've had more of those lately than like the just, flaming disaster, like just, everything goes to crap. But I've had a few of those too. And I will say this to anybody that's listening to your show, and I'm sure you've had people on your podcast say this before, and I know you've said it before, one mistake, one failure doesn't necessarily define who you are as an investor or as an entrepreneur or whatever, right? You're going to have these. If I got scared the first time something failed, I wouldn't be where I am today, right? I know that there's going to be failures. There's going to continue to be failures, right? None of us are perfect. None of us are, have the Midas touch. So it's going to happen. But yeah, I've had a few. I've got a few that are on scale to exit really well. I've got one that'll probably close out in the next 5 years that I think is going to be really good for me. My big play, I have it timed for 59. So at age 59, that will be my big one. So that is the one that I predict right now will be my $1 billion exit, which has always kind of been the big goal, right? Like, to me, that's kind of the big brag to make $1 billion exit. I'm sure there's people out there that would say $1 billion's easy. I would argue that, yeah, probably the first time, maybe, because the first $1 million is really hard. And then after that, not so hard. But yeah, that's kind of my genesis, I've made it, the $1 billion exit. And I have one that's on scale right now. Again, that's a while from now. I'm 46. We have it timed to be 59. It could happen as early as 56 the next 10 years. But 59 is probably the more realistic estimate based on what I think the economy is going to do, over the next 10 to 15 years.
Wow. So investing in private companies, do you have a pipeline that you're looking at 100? When I was in private equity, for example, and we're looking at hundreds of deals before we ever write a check, right? So is that really, from a time standpoint, what you spend most of your time doing now? Or is it more so on the CFO outsourcing side?
Well, the beauty is I've found a way to mingle those. So we run everything from bookkeeping to full scale CFO in your business. And so the beauty of that is I get to see a lot of what a lot of people would consider startups, early stage companies, that are maybe at their first $1 million in sales, and trying to scale up from there. And so I get involved with these. They're paying the firm to kind of help them kind of get things under control, get it where it needs to be. And so that's opened me up to a lot of opportunities in itself. By having those opportunities and talking to those people that are involved in those companies, I get to know some of their friends, their people that they're associated with. And then I do a lot of networking. So through a lot of the networking that I do, I get to meet a lot of people, answer a lot of questions. I give out a lot of free advice, which, used to bother me, probably more than it should, because, everybody likes to get paid for their time. But what I found is, like, when somebody needs free advice, like they need tax advice, business advice, KPI, whatever, right? Hey, I've got this, I have learned to collect information before I make the answer. So when somebody says, hey, I've got a buddy, he needs advice on this or whatever that situation is, I'm like, yeah, happy to help. When I get on the phone, tell me about your business. What are you doing? What's your revenue? What's your profit? Who's on your team? Who do you have in the right seat? Who do you have in the wrong seat? So I collect a lot of information from them before I give that free advice, which in reality, I'm doing market research on their business, while they're telling me what's going on, to see if they're a viable option for me to either invest in, buy a piece of, merge with somebody else, whatever that looks like. So anyways, that's kind of my way of getting paid to do some research, and then of course the free advice is really another great way to find out kind of what's going on with it. And the crazy thing is when people are looking for advice or free advice, when they're looking for that or they're looking for some guidance, I have found that they're more willing to give you the details of their business, knowing that you're trying to help them, than if you say, hey, I'm interested in purchasing your business, or I'm interested in investing in your business, or whatever it looks like. They tend to give you the rosy picture. Whereas when you're trying to solve a problem for them or give them advice on like where to go next or how to fix an issue, they tend to be a little bit more honest about where the company actually is. And that information is so much more valuable to me than the rosy, everything's great, you should invest in my business because we're going to be worth $1 trillion in 3 years. Because that's generally the story you get when you're like, hey, I'd be interested in investing in your business. Oh yeah, well, it's going to be worth $1 trillion in 2 weeks. So you should get in now.
Yeah, no kidding. So I want to rewind a little bit. We've kind of, I feel like we've gotten the 30s and the 40s of who Byron is, but take us back maybe to some of those 20s. Like, what were you doing? What was the mindset to get you to where kind of, it sounds like a lot of this started in 2008?
Yeah. So 2008, I don't tell the story very often. So you're getting ready to get a story I don't tell. 2008, I had been out of federal prison 2 years at that point. So I went in 1999 for loan sharking to drug dealers, which bad call at the time. Seemed fun when I was that age. But yeah, I was a loan shark for specifically drug dealers for the most part. And one of those guys had got busted. I got busted along with it, brought up into the conspiracy, in and out of court, blah, 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 blah. Went to federal prison camp. They talk about Club Fed. This was Club Fed. They had racquetball courts, handball courts, and, no fences and a weight yard. So not as bad as it sounds. Don't feel too bad for me. But, I'd been 2 years out. And so I'd been a small business owner up until this point. I had opened a few businesses, started them, run them. That's kind of how I collected a lot of cash that led me to the loan sharking, period of time where I was having a lot of really good return on the money that was out in the street. So 2 years out, I kind of served my time, knew what the situation was. I was finishing up the hours I needed to go ahead and get my CPA license. You have to put in a certain number of hours. I saw an opportunity to start purchasing inventory in 2007, 2008. That was kind of when had the economy crash in the real estate market. And so there was a lot of opportunity because there wasn't a lot of money on the street. And so a lot of these dealerships had overstocked inventory, trade-in inventory, things of that nature, and they were just getting beat up on their floor plans. And so I've always been a big motorcycle guy, and so I would go around to dealerships and I would try to buy up this like excess inventory, stuff they had just kind of hidden in the back wherever it was. And so I took the cash that I had available and I was liquidating their trade-in inventory, so to speak. I would go in, I would buy it for, 40 to 60 cents on the dollar. I would cherry pick the good ones. I would sell off the rest of the stuff. I would just take it to auction, dump it, put that cash back in my pocket. I took the good inventory and I put it on, Facebook, and I think Craigslist was really big at that time. Nobody probably remembers what Craigslist is. It was kind of like Facebook Marketplace, but it was big during those years. But all these different ways. I mean, I think we even used the peddler. Nobody's going to know what the peddler is, but we had all these different ways to sell inventory, but we were so much cheaper than everybody because I bought it so much cheaper, and people were really trying to sell too high because they were locked into these insane rates on these floor plans that they were stuck in, just trying to get out of it. And so I started my first dealership 2007, 2008, right around that time frame. That grew very quickly. Same time, I'm getting involved in being a CPA. I become a CPA. Now I'm working in a CPA firm. I noticed that the banks weren't really loaning money. And so I started my leasing company at that time. Leasing company did really well. I think that was like 2010, 2011. And so, had that short little stint of, sit on my hands, play racquetball. Honestly, prison is really just a great place to learn how to be a better criminal. So I had to avoid that as much as I could. Said, hey, I don't want to be back here, so I'm going to do everything I can to be out of here. But I learned to do things in a different way, and learned that even though it wasn't that bad, again, it was a camp. Not something I ever want to, live through again, right? The loss of freedom was what really kind of broke me. I love having my freedom. I love doing what I want to do when I want to do it. That's very, very important to me. That's what I would definitely consider freedom. And so I wanted to keep that. I never wanted to give that up. So I knew being my own boss was a way to keep that freedom. Going to work for somebody else, I have nothing against it. That's just not me. That's not who I am. So that's why I've always been more of an entrepreneur, an investor, kind of running my own business. And so that was kind of my late 20s was getting that rolling. The dealership, again, was in my 30s. Having the leasing company was in my 30s. So I just kind of started, businesses here and there, bought in pieces of other businesses, got involved in crypto, got involved in some, shovels and picks, so to speak, with the crypto. I knew crypto was a good space to be in, but being involved in the platforms and some of the trading bots and all the other things that were out there, essentially the picks and the shovels of the gold rush, there was more money in that than there really was in trying to be the first one to invest in the latest, greatest meme coin. So I did pretty well there with the picks and the shovels in my 30s. And then again, kind of moved into my 40s. And now I feel like I am maybe finally starting to grow up and get a real job. So, that's kind of the progression from 20s to 46.
So did you go to college then, I guess, in your late 20s then, and CPA firm to get your license and all that at that point?
So I was in college when I was arrested at University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And so when I got out, I had to go in, finish a few more classes to get that locked in. And then the CPA requires a few more hours beyond what your typical degree is. So I had to finish those up kind of as I was getting my experience. So once I had all that stuff done, because I had the arrest, the felony on my record, I had to go sit on the board, the CPA board, to get approved. I was told numerous times wasn't going to happen. Enough people that believed in me came in and said, hey, he's a good guy. It was a mistake. He deserves a chance. And so the CPA board took a chance on me and let me get my CPA, even with the felony. Since then, I've gotten my voting rights back, my citizenship rights back, my gun rights back. So I've done everything except for the actual pardon to this point. Like I have all my rights back that I lost in that process. But still technically have a felony that exists on my record. I would love to get it taken off at some point. I know that the right political affiliation could probably make that happen, but it's just never been that big an issue for me. Maybe it will be at some day and I'll go after it. But until then, I'm not really that worried about it. It hasn't kept me from a lot of the things that people tell me that it would keep me from. And so sometimes I kind of like the fact that people are going to count me out because of that, because of that brand, because it allows me to prove them wrong. Anyways, that's kind of how I stand on that. It's not the end of the world, but I would highly suggest not starting out your life with a felony. It doesn't make
no,
things
man.
easier.
I hear you on that, and I appreciate you sharing, man. That's pretty deep, but we've got somebody that we know pretty close that's kind of gone through a similar journey. And in fact, now that I think about it, I think you may be the third guest that has told somewhat of a similar story where something, in the 20s or even in the teens where something like this may have taken place. And in fact, I remember one guest we had, and he was actually a dealer himself, and was running massive business effectively. And he got in trouble and had a very long journey back, but has built a very successful, business. And he had some similar things to say where, hey, they told me I was going to have all these things and I was never going to be able to do this, and this, and has effectively been able to kind of prove a lot of that wrong. And it's great to see that now we've got a third one to add to the bunch. So congrats on that, man. Good for you.
What's something that works so well that it's basically magic? Air conditioning, noise canceling headphones, meeting-free Fridays? What about selling with Shopify? Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your own shop stage to the first real life store stage, all the way to did we just hit a million order stage? Shopify is there to help you grow. Whether you're selling shipping supplies or promoting productivity programs, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. From their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system, wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify has got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout, up to 36% better than the other leading e-commerce platforms. And sell more with less thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/unveiled, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/unveiled now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/unveiled. And thanks to Shopify for supporting today's episode.
So take us into the future now. You're mid-40s. You talk about this $1 billion potential exit with one of your investments at 59 or 56 or whenever that time frame may come. I mean, what do you envision for the rest of kind of your investment career, your life here? I mean, what is out there from a goal standpoint that you want to get to?
Yeah. So, I got asked this probably, I don't know, it was about maybe 5-6 years, pre-COVID. Somebody said, if you could do anything in the world, what would you do? And my answer at the time was I really love investing in businesses and in people. So I'd probably be an angel investor. And that really hasn't changed. So I think if it all plays out the way that I want it to, I would love to be able to just kind of invest in good stories, just good, solid people, good entrepreneurs, good ideas, without having to stress the immediate return on that, right? Like really invest in things that I believe in, and I'm not trying to say that I'm going to invest in only, butterflies and, things that make me feel good on the inside, but believing in people is huge. And I think that there's a lot of people out there in this world that don't get the support that they need to really chase their dreams. So if I could give that to somebody, and make that something that they can obtain while also benefiting myself and the rest of the people that are involved in me, and maybe being able to share that down the line with more companies to invest in, more people to invest in, that would be ideal for me. So I think, I think I'm headed in that direction of where I want to be. I'm making the decisions and, making, I wouldn't call them sacrifices because I want to go that far, but I definitely live below my means. I always have. And I think that that's important. If you want to be super rich, you can't blow every dollar that you make, right? You got to live below your means, and you got to invest early and invest often. I can't remember who it was who said that, but it's a great quote. And I believe in that. I think you should do that. And so I think I'm on the path to where I want to be, but yeah, ultimately, just investing in people and ideas and being able to get it off the ground, and help them kind of blow it out the park with whatever it is that they want to do that makes sense to me, right? That would be ideal.
That's cool. Well, this has been awesome. Let's wrap up with some rapid fire questions. What's the most expensive pair of shoes or pants that you've purchased?
Ooh, so I bought some silly Louis Vuitton sneakers.
There you go.
Yeah, I spent way too much money. I mean, they were $3,000, so it wasn't horrible. But for a pair of sneakers, it was a little silly. But yeah, I mean, I liked them. I thought the idea was cool, and yeah, I went a little crazy. So,
how long ago was that?
That was like 7 months ago, maybe last year.
Wow. So super recent. You're
Yeah,
feeling a little good
recent.
that day, huh? A little extra jingle in the pocket.
I've worn them twice.
So $1,500 per wear. That's awesome.
Yeah. Because every time I'm like, man, I should wear these, and I'm like, oh man, I don't know that I don't want to like actually touch the ground with these. But and again, not that expensive, but it's kind of like, I don't know, man. It's a lot to spend on a pair of shoes when, $100 on a pair of shoes used to be a big deal, right?
Yep. I get you. What about the most expensive meal out?
Oh man, I like to pick up the check. I'm not gonna lie. That's kind of my splurge. So I've done a couple of meals with friends, and that I've picked up some pretty big checks. I think our biggest one, and it wasn't huge. I mean, I think it was like a party of like maybe 12, and I think it was like a $28,000 meal, something like that. So, I would
say have some nice wine in there or something for that.
Oh yeah, we had some really, really good wines there. It was kind of steaks. It was a great meal. Really good.
Steaks not going to get you to 28 grand.
Yeah. We had some. It was good. It was a really good restaurant, nice. private room. It was nice, and it was a good collection of people. We were there for a good reason. We were celebrating my wife, the most important person in my life. As one of her, it was for her birthday, and so it was a lot of our really good friends that came in to do this with us, and so it was fun. Like we had a great time. I'm not a huge drinker, but I definitely drank too much that night. And, we did a lot I'm a Scotch guy. So we had some expensive Scotches, some expensive wines. We had way too many tomahawks and Wagyu. And it was fun. I enjoyed it. But definitely very extravagant for just a meal.
That's awesome. You said you're a toy guy, so I'll add a little extra on this next question. What's been the most expensive car or toy?
So I've had a lot. When we had the dealership, I ran through a lot of cars. It was always, I'd go to auction, I'd find something that looked fun, that looked cool, and I would buy them. I never went too crazy. So, I've always had my cap is 200. I'll admit I've spent 300 on a car, but I'm always like, I'm never going to spend more than 200. I've spent 300 a few times. So I think my most, well, not even 300. I think my most expensive is like 289 or something like that. So, that's probably about my worst. But man, there's been a lot of those.
Is that a sports car?
Yeah, I'm a sports car guy. Yeah, I'm definitely a sports car guy. Yeah, I like the words of Ricky Bobby. I like to go fast, So you ain't first, you're last. I'm a speed guy.
Is there a favorite brand or two?
Man, not really. I've never really been like super heavy with that. Like even with motorcycles, I love Ducatis, but I also love a Harley. I'm not a Harley guy, but I love a Harley Davidson. I appreciate the brand. I've got a few of them. I mean, nothing too crazy. I love a McLaren, but like I wouldn't use it for a long trip. So probably my favorite all around is the Bentley Continental. It's probably the best platform for comfort and speed. It's an extremely fast car that rides like a Rolls. The Rolls has too much body roll, so it's more of a comfort vehicle than anything else. I really like the Bentley Continental. It's probably my favorite all around vehicle for speed and comfort and everything else.
Spoken like a true car guy. The GT on that one or just regular?
I like the GT. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I like Continental. Yeah, GT. Yeah.
Okay.
GT Speed. Yeah. That was a good car, man. Those are fun cars.
What about the most expensive trip or experience? Or was that $28,000 meal the experience?
that was definitely that was a one night experience. I mean, we like I got hooked on the TikTok, Instagram, the bungalow over the water thing. So I had to experience that. So we've done that a few times. I really like that. In fact, we're going next month. No, it's not May yet. So 2 months. We're going in June. We're going to go do a little 12-dayer on an overwater bungalow. And those aren't cheap, but they're I would say don't break the bank to do it, but they're worth every penny. I mean, the service is amazing. The experience is great. You can see the water. You literally walk out, water's there. You got your own little pool. But yeah, those are pricey. So that's probably my big splurge when it comes to travel is those, is those overwater bungalows. And it's been a long time since I flew anywhere other, not first class or private. So I do splurge on plane tickets. Not horrible because they're not that bad. First class really isn't that expensive, but I can't tell you the last time I flew Southwest or or anything kind of back of the plane. And I know that sounds bougie. It is what it is. I need my room on a plane seat because we fly all the time. And I can't do this, I'm not a huge guy, but I'm wide, and I just can't do the all stuffed into a small seat on a plane.
Yeah, for our listeners, this dude's built like a linebacker, so I can understand it.
Not me.
I understand that. So, where is still on your bucket list in terms of going on vacation, or you kind of hit all the overwater bungalow? Maybe you've gone to all the different. I know there's 10 different places out there that are kind of all over the interwebs, as they say, TikTok, Instagram. You go to the Seychelles, you go to the Maldives, you go to Tahiti. I know there's done some in Central America. Have you been to a bunch? You still got some on there?
Yeah, we still got a few. My wife wants to do a month in Ireland, Scotland. And so we're really considering doing that, go do just a nice solid month, really kind of, get involved in the local culture and just kind of take it slow. We tend to go on vacation and we try to experience everything, and we're kind of that 10 to 14 day vacation people, 14 days kind of pushing it for me. I feel like I need to get back and do something, anything. But anything less than 10 days, I don't feel like we were there long enough. So, doing a full month anywhere seems like a long time. So we've decided that kind of, that Scottish countryside kind of out there, not planning a lot of stuff, just going and relaxing and kind of getting involved in the culture, which I know doesn't sound super exciting, but, it's what my wife wants to do. And I, big fan of happy wife, happy life mentality. So that's what she wants. That's what we're going to do.
Nice. How did you make your first buck?
My first dollar. I was 12, I think. I wanted a Pal Peralta skateboard. Probably nobody knows what this is, but this was the skateboard to have back then. And so I wanted this Pal Peralta skateboard. Told mom, told my dad, this is what I want. I really want this thing, blah, blah, blah. And my dad said, well, if you want it, you're going to have to earn the money. And I said, okay, well, how do I earn money? He said, well, you can go mow the yard, and I think it was like $20 or something. I'll pay you $20 to do it. This was like $100 something board, even way back and when dirt was made when I was a kid. So I go out there and I mow the yard, and I'm like, this is miserable. It's going to take me forever to make this money. And so one of my buddies that lived in the same neighborhood, I said, hey, I tell you what, you come mow the yard and I'll give you $15 and I'll keep $5. If you'll go do it. He's like, yeah, I'll do that. 100%. Let's go. So by that, I found out I can get other people to do the work and I just got to take a little piece of it. And so I got I would say at least half the yards in my neighborhood growing up. I went around to each one of these and was like, hey, we like to come mow your yard. Here's the price. And then I would get the other kids that lived in my neighborhood. They would go mow it, but they didn't want to talk to the adults. I've never had an issue talking to anybody. I'll talk to a wall if you let me. And so I would go. I would say hey, time to collect, time to pay up. And I would keep $5 per yard. And so that was my first small business before I even knew what small business was. I was like 12, 13 years old, getting the neighborhood guys to mow yards. And I would just go around and collect money, $5 a yard at a time. So that was how I made my first dollars. But yeah, my first dollar was miserable. I had to cut the grass at my own house, which sounds super bougie when you're like, oh, poor me, you had to cut your grass. But I have amazing parents. They're great, great people. They probably took it way too easy on me. So having to cut the grass seemed like a lot at the time. They've always treated me extremely well and not made me do too much. But they've always encouraged me to learn and do that, but not really so much in the physical activities. As long as you play sports and you do good in school, we're good. That was kind of the mentality I had growing up.
That's awesome. What's the craziest thing that you've ever done to earn money?
Man, I don't think I can tell that story. Man, craziest thing. I don't know, man. That's a tough one. So we, and this is probably illegal, so I probably shouldn't tell this story either. But in college, so I was, I went to University of Tennessee in Knoxville, Tennessee. Tried to walk on the team, wasn't good enough to play there. This is when Peyton Manning was there, like really great players. So I was practice squad, but I wasn't ever a player. But so one of my buddies was renting an apartment that was really close to the stadium, and so everybody pays to park as close as they can get to the stadium. And so we went out and we got some, those yellow vests that you like road construction guys have. So we got these yellow vests and we went and stood in front of the apartment.
I can see where this is going.
and we were charging $20 a car to park in this lot that we had no authority whatsoever to park anybody in. And we did amazing. We made a ton of money parking cars illegally.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. But that's the true entrepreneurial spirit in some respects, right? Like, I mean, I guess, until the owner came out and said, you can't charge for my lot that I own. Like, I guess you were like, hey, it seems like some people are paying me for this service that I don't know that I actually have rights to, but hey, they're doing it.
It worked out well for us. We the funny thing is the next game day, which there was a 2-week gap, they had people out there parking cars. So we were
saw the opportunity after.
Yeah, we were like, let's do it again, right? It worked well last time. So we go at our best, and there's guys out there. They had cones and everything. I was like,
oh man,
missed that opportunity.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. How old were you when you made your first million?
Oh, my first million, I was 39 officially. First, like true $1 million in the bank, cleared of all debts, everything else. 39 years old, sold the dealership 2018. Cleared a little over $1 million after it was all said and done on the sale of that. In hindsight, horrible multiplier. I got like a 0.6x. Taught me that valuation and having an exit plan is everything. So success, made over $1 million. I wouldn't call it my best success, but it was definitely a good learning success. I wouldn't say I would never sell below like a true multiplier, but it definitely taught me how important a multiplier is, right? Like, if you're selling, I essentially sold for like less than asset value because, I didn't know better. I knew the concept, but I had not done the work up until that point to really build in the value and get the correct multiple. Yeah, I didn't get my first million until I was 39.
How old do you think you were when you actually hit net worth of $1 million?
Oh, that was earlier. We had, there was multiple times our like operating, cash for the dealership was well over that. But I would say I was probably 30. Let's see, started 28. So it was probably like 33 before I would say I was probably, worth, well, maybe a little earlier than that. But, early 30s was probably the first time I was technically worth $1 million. But 39 was the first time I was liquid, cash in the bank, not counting assets or home or any of the other stuff over that. So,
yeah. What's the dumbest thing that you've ever wasted money on?
Man, I do that a lot. I do that way too often. Man, I buy stupid stuff on a regular basis. Like I can tell a lot of those stories. Probably the worst one. We were at a football game. We were at a concert or a football game. And this guy, we were in the parking lot, and this guy had this like long Jaguar. Do you remember the old V12 Jaguars? You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Super. Oh, yeah. So this guy had one. It sounded amazing. I mean, this thing looked like the freaking Batmobile. It's long. It's, just ridiculous. And I've been drinking at the concert. We come out. I get to talking to this guy. It had these like fur seats. This thing was stupid. It had like fur seats. I mean, this thing was ridiculous. And so I get to talking to this guy and like just kind of hearing his story. So of course I get it in my head that I need to buy this Jaguar. So I bought this stupid Jaguar, I think for like $12,000. I mean, it wasn't a ton of money, but definitely one of the worst purchases. I drove this thing home. I think I drove it one time to the gas station. It sat in the back. We had a farm at the time, so we had like 17 acres. And so this thing sat like behind one of the barns for probably the next 5 years before I paid somebody to haul this thing off and junk it. So yeah, that was a pretty dumb purchase. But yeah, I've had, I buy things on a whim a lot of times, and I'm like, that was dumb, immediately after buying it. So yeah, but that was probably the worst one by far.
What's something that you've spent way too much money on, but you don't regret?
Oh man. I'm going to go super cheesy. We did 2 weddings. My mom couldn't make it to our first, and I way overspent on that one in Tybee Island, rented a couple of homes and had the beach and all that stuff. But my mom couldn't make it. And so it was very last minute. So we had already paid for everything. So we decided to redo it. We did the second one in Nashville, went all out again, rented a huge house, did all the stuff. But yeah, definitely way overpaid for that. And I don't regret a penny of it. Yeah, it was worth it to have the whole family there and to get married in style. I'm a big fan of you only do it once. Nothing against people that have had divorces and everything else, but I know that my wife now is my forever person, always will be. I'm not doing this again. Like, had no intentions of getting married in the first place. So when I met her, and realized that she was one I wanted to spend the rest of my life with, it was definitely a no-brainer for me. I've never doubted it or anything else. But yeah, not to be too cheesy, but yeah, I definitely way overspent on 2 weddings, but it was worth every penny. Don't regret it.
How long you been married?
We've been married 14 years now. So.
Nice. Congrats.
Yeah, thanks.
Congrats. What's a key lesson that you learned from childhood?
Key lesson I learned from childhood is that I definitely should have faced my own consequences. Again, great parents, no issue whatsoever. This is not to criticize them, but my parents were definitely of the type that, when I would do something stupid, they would try to help me get out of it, and like help me to avoid some of those consequences. And I definitely feel like I should have faced every consequence that was coming my way, and I would have learned faster. So I think that that's important. The other thing that I would say that I learned from childhood is like friendships are huge, and like if you cultivate friendships and you have good friendships, you have good people in your corner, honestly, you can pretty much go through anything. But trying to do this life alone is very difficult. And so if you have close friends you haven't spoken with in a long time or anything like that, any of our listeners, I would highly encourage you to reach out. There's definitely some friendships I've had since I was a young kid that I value tremendously. And having good, solid people in your corner is everything for sure.
What's a closely held belief that you once had that you recently changed your mind on?
Partnerships are stupid. So my first partnership went horribly wrong. It was definitely one of those down in flames, huge failures. And so for a long time, I said, I'll never do another partnership again. They're the worst of the bane of entrepreneurship. I'll never do it. I'm going to do it all on my own. It wasn't until I had a good partnership, that I learned that was one experience. Doesn't mean that they're always going to be great, but I've definitely abandoned that theory. And I have multiple amazing partnerships now. I have multiple partners in multiple businesses. Not that they all do great, but I have learned that if you set up the expectations from the front end, those partnerships can be really amazing. And you can really complement one another when you have, skills in different areas. But yeah, my first main partnership was just a flaming disaster. And so, I think I blame that one completely on the partnership. I'm 100% sure if you asked him the same thing, he would blame it on me, just as I would probably blame it on him. And it probably fell somewhere in the middle. We just were young, dumb, and just didn't know what we were doing. But yeah, it definitely, for a long, long time, I thought partnerships were the worst idea you could ever have.
Awesome. Any last pieces of advice for anyone that's just starting out on their journey?
Oh man, yeah. If you're just starting out on your journey, and we covered it a little earlier, but like, you're gonna fail. It's gonna happen. Just go ahead and know that it's going to 100% happen. You're gonna fail multiple times. I can tell you from experience, it happens. It's happened to me. I don't know a single successful person that has not had multiple failures in their repertoire. So know it's going to happen, and just know that you're one failure away from success at any given point, right? So, it's going to happen. Learn from the failure, move on, just keep going at it until you find the win, and then enjoy the win and build on that win. But know that probably even after your first win, you're going to have another few failures. So I would say go by the rule of 10. It's probably, 9 times out of 10, it's not going to work out. But if that 1 in 10 does, man, it's going to be amazing. And if you're a true entrepreneur, you know that, you live by that. And being an entrepreneur means working 80 hours a week so that you don't have to work 40 hours a week for somebody else. So it is not the glorified money comes in for nothing that a lot of people think it is. Entrepreneurship is a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Awesome. That's Byron. Thanks for on the show today.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. That was a great time.
Thanks for listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast with Jace Mattinson. For more stories, investment opportunities, and information, check out our website, millionairesunveiled.com. See you next time when you'll hear from another everyday millionaire.